Butterflies fill my spine, I feel myself getting hot again. Nerves rushing through my brain, yeah, they can't hear fiber from the trees. You're standing by his side, red drops burning down your face. Getting real close now, baby. Holy fuck, I feel it with you. I lose self-control. Now I found that you're not one to hear me now. You got me on my knees begging for your lady. And like a fool to stand around and let you blame me. And I'm riding in the sky to the heavens like an
Hi, my name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight, I got a real good special guest. I'm not going to say former, but pro wrestler Kyle Storm.
I don't know about good, but I mean, I'm all right.
How you been?
I've been good.
Good. I haven't seen you in a while.
I'm an old man, so I'm not really around that much.
Right. He says he's old. I'm 9 years older than him, so how do you think that makes me feel? All right, Kyle, let's get right into it. Let's get right into the fan questions, because we got quite a few.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
The king of the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Joe Bruin. He says, what are your memories of Mayhem Independent Wrestling?
My memories. Oof. I was 1998. So I was 26 when Matt was 25 when we started that company. That was originally created as a Stick It to Yankee Pro, Joe Eugenio.
Yeah.
None of us had any business owning a company or running a company at that point. Matt and I were training at YPW school and, politics and all that stuff. So we thought, hey, why don't we just start our own company? So I went and bought a ring down in Jersey from Frank Idavea.
Fat Frank?
Yep. And, that was a POS.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. But it still made its rounds all the way up until, I think it's still making its rounds.
Wow.
It went to Power League for a little while, but, I mean, that's another story. But Matt, myself, and we had a guy named Randy Blake, Black Wolf. So we started it up and ran a couple shows. Did all right. The Toxic Waltz, it was originated
Was there?
with Mayhem. Well, that was the first. That was at Westport.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. Teddy Goods.
Yeah.
He's the one who got the show for us. He was one of our road crew, the Piranha.
Nice.
So I've known Teddy since he was like 14, 13.
Wow.
That was that was our first big show. We had Anthony Durante, Pitbull number 2.
Yeah.
And we had Gangrel.
Nice.
Dave Heath. So it was originally supposed to be Draws and somebody else. It was when Vince was still letting his talent out for third-party bookings.
Right.
But Draws was just going into the LOD gimmick.
Okay. Yep.
And I forget who I was supposed to work. It was Jesus Christ. The why am I? He was in a DOA. Chains.
Oh, Brian Adams. No, not Brian Adams.
No, Brian Adams is Crush.
Brian Lee.
Brian Lee.
The DOA's brother.
Yeah. He was doing the biker gimmick.
Right.
He was supposed to be on the show with Draws, and then we got a call saying that they couldn't make it. How we feel about Dave Heath as a replacement? That he's the only one we can send.
Right.
So then I had to make a phone call to try and we got Anthony, which was one of the funniest things about that show is they both came to my house in Providence.
Yeah.
Because we picked them up at the airport. And we had just gotten the parts back to put our belt together, our heavyweight belt.
Okay.
So in my living room, I got my drill out where there were actually gold-plated saw blades, like actual blades that we
Right.
had made. And then we had them airbrushed. It was, oh my God, so bad. But I mean, we thought it was cool.
Right.
So here's Anthony Durante and Dave Heath sitting on my couch with the drill, drilling through the leather straps and
Yeah.
bolting everything up. And they were like, this is awesome. And I'm like, hey, don't hit yourself with it.
Right.
But yeah, so that was that we had a pallet death match in that and with I think Padula and Black Wolf. We did our first ever Toxic Waltz there. We had some guys
Right.
from West Virginia up because we'd worked the show down for ACCW. So it was an interesting ordeal, but that ended up going sideways real quick. A lot of people egos
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
thinking they deserved the bigger. So that went sideways really quick. So I went back to just working.
Right. All right. Well, Joe has a follow up here. What are your memories of Anthony Ruffo? The great Anthony Ruffo. I
Okay.
should say.
Anthony and I have a ton of history. I started in 1992 with NEWA, and then I left in late '93
Yeah.
when I became a father.
Okay.
So I had left the business, and when I left is when Anthony came in as Dambula.
Yeah.
So when I came back in the summer of '94 is when I first met Anthony. Didn't really, because I was only there for 6 months before Matt and I went to Yankee Pro.
Okay.
So I didn't really have a lot of interaction with him there. When he came up to Yankee Pro, as Ali Muhammad,
Right.
is where we got a relationship. And over the years, I mean, we had 2 schools together. We ran IIW together.
Okay.
I mean, some of my best memories, like when we started training Tommy Knoxville, it was me and Anthony's school in Providence. It's where we started training Evan Six,
Wow.
and we helped train. We worked with John Cena when he came back from California before he went to OVW.
Yeah.
Spike was helping out there.
Wow.
It was an awesome time. The one night stand. It was right before Chaotic started. Well, Chaotic was already around, but it was before Randy
you went.
Miller. It was before Randy Miller bought it.
Okay.
Or Randy and Jamie and
right.
Milo, I think.
Yeah, because Randy owned it first.
Well, Randy
And then-
owned it with Jamie
Oh, okay.
and Milo, I believe, or another guy. And that's when IIW started Chaotic.
Okay.
Like the roster, pretty much.
Right.
Like the first contracted guys was Gino, Anthony,
Yeah.
the One Night Stand, me. I think that was the first 5. And then Lewis came on after that. But like we all pretty much started Chaotic.
Right.
So, I mean, I grew up in the business with Anthony.
Yeah.
Like when we all finally got away from the BS and started really taking it seriously, we came up in the business together. So it was nice. It was cool.
It was wild because, like, when I first started going to shows back in the day, Anthony and Gino were the Millennium
Millennium Killers,
Killers.
yep.
Oh my God, they were so good, so big.
Oh yeah, I can't even count the number of matches we had with them, and
Right.
just so much fun.
Yeah,
Like,
I can imagine.
Gino bringing out the bed of nails and me moonsaulting him with the bed of nails on top of him.
Right.
Like thinking that I wasn't going to get hurt because I was hitting the board. No, I actually got hurt worse.
Right. I used to love when Gina would go outside, do the Mick Foley drop from the edge of the ring.
Oh yeah, those are fun.
Who wants to see a fat fly? Used to love that. But he was my son's favorite wrestler.
Yeah, Gino's a good guy.
All right, Vin
Rattay.
Rattay, okay. Ask him about the secret
Draven.
mission of Budapest.
Oh,
I have no idea what this means.
All right, so this was PWF Northeast.
Yeah.
I had just come on board as a worker. I wasn't a part owner yet.
Okay.
And we were doing a promo, and I think the Damned were in Knoxville on camera, and somebody asked, "Well, where are the Damned?" And Knoxville came out with, "They're on a secret mission to Budapest," and I totally broke character, and I'm just like turning my head, and I was like, "Did you just?" He goes, "They're in Budapest." I'm like, "All right, yeah, well, I guess they're in Budapest."
That's awesome.
So it's been a running gag.
Now the PWF Northeast. Now you guys worked that out with like Carino to be a part of that because he was running PWF in
Universal.
Pennsylvania.
Universal,
right?
So Matt and Vinny worked for Steve down at PWF.
Okay.
With the SAT and the Hit Squad
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then there was a company running out of the old Loomis barn. I think it was UCCW.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it. But Bad Boy was over there and a couple other guys, and Matt and Vinny were there sometimes. So they ended up just engulfing that company and naming it PWF Northeast.
Right.
Where we were trading talent with Carino, and some of our guys were going down there, like Blade and Pava. Kid Crazy would go down with Frankie Armadillo. But most of the time, it was just us running shows up here, and we went from the barn, and then the company was getting ready to close down. And I asked Matt, I said, "Why are you closing it?" He goes, "Well, I have nobody to really run it with me."
Right.
Like they're all, it's just like, it's a hobby right now. I said, "Well, if you want to run it, we'll run it." But I said, a lot of things are going to change.
Right.
And because Matt and I hadn't spoken for like 3 years
Wow.
before I started working for PWF. And what was funny was Chris Venom and Knoxville, the ones that got us to start talking again.
Nice.
So we did a shoot on a show where none of the boys knew. The only thing the boys knew was that him and I hated each other, like legit. So I jumped in the ring at one of the shows down in Bristol, and Matt and I got into a shoot fight, like we were swinging.
Wow.
And made the guy separate us. And only 2 people in the building knew besides Matt and I, and that was Venom and Knoxville.
Wow.
So I got in my truck, I took off out of the parking lot, went down the street, turned around, and all the guys that knew me were like, just looking at me, like shaking their head. Like there were more F-bombs
Right.
dropped
Yeah, they were mad.
than I could possibly imagine.
Because they got taken.
well, they all got, every single person that worked in the building.
Right.
It was beautiful. So the first show that I came on board owning it was Wrongful Termination, we called it.
Okay.
And then it got turned to, in the beginning of the show, it got turned into Resurrection because I came on as an owner and we did the whole evil owner gimmick. And but I remember clear as day, the meeting before the show, I had all the talent sitting in the front and a bunch of new people that was their first show. And I had said, everybody look to your left and look to your right. One of you is not going to be here.
Right.
And Sean Gorman, I remember, looked around and he goes, "This is my first show. I know I'm not going nowhere. So one of you 2 were gone." And I was like, that was the start of PWF Northeast as people learned to know it.
Now you had, like, there was other guys that helped you guys with it too, right? Like, I mean, you know, obviously not like as owners, but like people that helped you.
Well, the original PWF Northeast
Yeah.
was Matt, myself, Vinny,
Yeah.
and we had a silent partner named Roy Rossi.
Okay.
And Roy pretty much made it so we could run the company the way it needed to be run.
Nice.
Our production went through the roof. Our sets went through the roof. We started running the Quincy Armory every other month.
Right.
We were running the Webster Town Hall, the Webster Elks Lodge.
Yeah.
In between those, and then we had a school in North Providence where we were running weekly shows there for
Nice.
TV tapings. Well, TV taping, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's where it really, really started to kick in, and that was around 2003. And then 2004, we had the Legends in for that. We did a clinic, and we brought in Ricky Steamboat, Les Thatcher, and Harley Race
Nice.
for a 3-day weekend. So that was pretty much like the beginning of, and then our Quincy show started blowing up and really doing well. And that was right around 2005-ish. And then I moved to Florida,
Yeah.
and Matt kept running it.
No, were
and-
you already married? No.
Oh, I was married
you-
to my first wife.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. That's a whole different story.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a different show. That's a different show.
Yeah, yeah. We don't need to go to that show. Because I like your wife now.
I happen to.
Well, I'm glad you do.
So, so when I went to Florida, there had been whispers that NECW was closing,
right.
which brings us to the merger, which I think there's a question about that.
Yeah,
So
there
I don't
is,
wanna
there
go-
is, there is.
I don't want to jump ahead. So,
Well, why don't we just jump to that, then we'll go to another question afterwards.
Okay.
Scott Anthony, the NECW PWF Northeast merger.
yeah.
The merger put eyes on both you guys with TV and great shows with amazing talent.
The merger was probably the worst business decision I ever made in my life.
Really?
And I've made some bad ones.
Yeah.
I got caught up in the idea of it instead of wondering why it was coming to be.
Okay.
Why was Sheldon closing his doors? Why was things going sideways with Bob Evans? Why did it go sideways with Kevin Kelly? Why did it go sideways with Sonny Goodspeed? And those are the questions I should have asked. Never did.
Right.
Live and learn.
Yeah.
So we brought Sheldon on board, and we decided that it was more encompassing to keep the NECW name
Okay.
and keep it as that. And we incorporated some of the PWF logo into it.
Right.
And made the heavyweight title a Triple Crown. So we combined all the lineages from the Mayhem title, the PWF Northeast title, and the NECW title.
Right.
And we
Into
made it
one.
into one.
Right.
We did awesome. In the first year and a half, things were going really, really well. We landed the deal with Comcast Sportsnet,
Right.
which turned out to be not exactly what was promised to us.
Okay.
People in their end made promises without clearing it by the people they need to clear it by.
Right.
So right before our first, probably a week before our first taping at Quincy, when we were going to launch it,
Yeah.
we got contacted that we were not going to be on Comcast Sportsnet. We were going to be on their on-demand. What? Which completely destroyed our sponsorship
Right.
that we had lined up. We had a couple energy drink companies that were going to come on board with us, and was ready to be signed, and then that happened.
Right.
So we had to tell them that now this is changing.
Right.
Which they all said, well, it's not what we're looking for.
So
made
they
it-
backed out.
They backed out. So now we're back to bankrolling ourselves.
Right.
Well, I should say Roy's bankrolling us.
Right.
We ran a good 4 years between Triple W, which is the women's company,
Right.
and NECW as a whole. I got to the point, and I'm not saying that I initiated it, but I went to Roy and I said, I'm done. I said, I'm done doing all of the work. And I don't know if you went to any of those Quincy shows
I went to a couple.
and saw our set.
Yeah.
Okay. I built that set.
Wow.
So
Damn.
With the stage, the ramp,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards. And to see somebody just sitting around listening to himself on the radio, marking out to himself and not doing a thing,
Right.
and then taking all the credit for what was being done, I had enough.
Right.
So I went to Roy and then I told Matt, I said, I'm done. So Roy and Matt both agreed we're done. We're going to close down. So we were going to end it right there. We weren't going to go any further.
Right.
So we were sitting around down at, I think we were at Matt's house and we were just BSing. And I was like, why don't we just start PWF again and
Right.
run it on a small scale? And he goes, well, where are we going to run? Because we don't have the school anymore.
Right.
And I'm like, well, let's see if we can find a place. So we found the Boys and Girls Club in Providence, that Davey Lopes,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
that wanted to come on board and be our home. And it just so happened that the colors of their gym matched our colors.
Right.
So it was very, very easy to start right up.
Right.
We landed like 7 sponsors, small companies, restaurants, but they all chipped in, and like we had a exotic pet store.
Okay.
That was one of our sponsors,
Yep.
and they sponsored the Toxic Waltz.
Nice.
So we had snakes and lizards and everything at the show.
Right.
Just lending into that
Yeah.
theme. We had a bar and grill that sponsored us. So they had the concession stand where they had smoked wings and everything else at our shows. So we started having a great time. And then I ended up, my father passed away. And at that point I was like, you know what, guys, I think I'm done.
Right.
So I stepped away from the company. They ran again. They ran for another, I want to say like 6 months, and then they ended up stopping.
Right.
So, and that was around 2012. Yeah, 2012. So,
Now, is Davey's a part of the Boys and Girls Club? Is that how, like, is
Who?
Davey Lopes?
well, Davey Lopes was the name of the Boys and Girls Club.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't a person.
Okay. Oh, okay.
This
All
this
right.
this
Gotcha.
gentleman. This gentleman.
Davey
passed-
Lopes, isn't that a baseball player?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he's a bit. He used to play for the Dodgers, Davey Lopes.
I don't know if it's the same
It's
guy.
probably a different
Probably
guy, but yeah.
But he was a Rhode Island big shot.
Right.
So they named the Boys and Girls Club after him.
Nice.
So that was pretty much that.
Okay. Before we get back into Scott's, I got something from Tim Murray. Your favorite NEWA story? Tim asked a lot of questions on the show. I gotta thank him for that. He's-
Good old Kilgore.
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite NEWA story. All right, so we'll do this.
All right.
I was 19. Matt was 18, still a senior in high school.
Wow.
I'm sorry, he was 17. He hadn't turned 18 yet. And Rock used to bring the roster to Challenges. It's a sports pub
Yeah.
in Cranston, Rhode Island.
Okay.
They also had one in Providence. Mind you, 21 plus. So
That 17-year-old wrestler, 19-year-old wrestler.
yeah, just turned 19. So we used to go there every Thursday night after training, and we had Rock did like honors tab.
Yeah.
Well, he learned quickly that was not the best idea.
Right.
I think in the first 2 weeks we ran up a tab of close to 10 grand. It was crazy.
Yeah. You guys could drink.
Well, mind you, it was funny because that was the club where teachers would go after school and this and
okay.
that. So Matt and I are there. We're drinking and we're eating wings, and we look over, and our drafting and our algebra teacher are playing pool. So I looked at Matt and I'm like, "Want to go say hi?" He's like, "Dude, I'm going to see him tomorrow." I said, "Well, let's go say hi."
Right.
So we walk over there and we're like, "Hey guys, want to play a game?" And they looked up and went, "Why are you here?" Don't worry about that. Let's play a game. And then, which was funny, is the drafting teacher ended up becoming the superintendent.
Really?
Now, mind you, I don't want to say that I was drinking with a teacher, but yeah, I was drinking with a teacher, and we got pretty loaded, and it was funny seeing him at my daughter's graduation and him handing out the diplomas. And I'm like, dude, I can't call you doctor. I can't take you seriously.
Right.
I said I was drunk with you in the parking lot. I can't take you seriously.
That's awesome.
So that's probably my funniest NEWA story.
That's great. All right. So Scott's got some more. Top 3 names you wish you could have worked with booking wise.
Oh, booking-wise.
Yeah, but didn't.
So guys, I wish I
Would have booked yourself against.
Oh, worked with?
Yeah, top 3 names you wish you could have worked with, booking wise, but didn't.
I would have loved to have worked a program with Reckless Youth.
He was so good.
We were on a ton of shows together, but he was always in an angle and we were in angles. I was part of a tag team with the Dogs of War, so it never synced up.
Right.
And I would have loved to have worked a program with him. Let's see. On the indie level. I wouldn't have mind working the Hit Squad. They were fun.
Yeah.
But they were after my time. Like when they started getting big, I was already
Right.
running a company and not working so much. I would have loved to have worked the Eliminators.
That's my favorite tag team that's ever been on television.
And it almost happened.
Really?
And another funny story, Matt and I went to the Pacific Center and Sandman was there.
Yeah.
And he was running kind of talent acquisition. Bubba was running talent.
Okay.
And Paul, whatever. So we'd run into him at the Civic Center. We're like, hey, we're interested in, and back then ECW was show up to a show and they threw you on.
Right.
So he's like, oh, we're going to be in Webster in 3 weeks. Come on up. He goes, we had a show in Revere coming up, but that's already full. So you don't want to jump into that one. That one's kind of crazy.
Okay.
It's a Wonderland. So 3 weeks, we're going to be in Webster. So show up. I'm like, all right, cool. So Matt and I leave and we're excited because we're a tag team, and the Dudleys were involved with something else. So I'm like, dude, this is a shot. We're going to work Perry and John. And I said, this will be cool. So we're kids, we're getting excited. And at the Wonderland show, the infamous Eric Koulas happens.
Mass transit.
And so we show up to Webster and Jim's there and he goes, not gonna happen.
Right.
And I'm like, what's going on? 'Cause we didn't know what happened yet.
Right.
Because the internet was very new.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, what's going on? We're handling things different now. You got to come down to the school and try out. And I'm like, I'm not driving to Philly. One of my dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
And then we find out after the fact why things changed. Right. And I was just like, motherfucker. Like, it was just like, here was our chance. Like, this was the second opportunity that Matt and I didn't blow, but missed.
Right.
The first one, we just were dumb because we were Joe Eugenio's tag champs at YPW. And we both did a show at Salisbury Beach that Tony Rumble was running and Kevin Sullivan was booking.
Right.
So we did a show there, and then Tony calls us up and he goes, we want to use you. Kevin wants to use you guys full time.
Right.
Like, we want to use you more. So we're like, all right, well, let me call you right back. We called Joe because we were his tag champs.
Yeah.
Well, you can do what you want, but we don't have to book you. And at the time, Joe was doing 50 to 65 shows a year.
Right.
And they were good paydays.
Right.
So I called Tony back up, and I will never forget this conversation as long as I live. And it was the dumbest thing I ever did. Because 3 weeks later, the power company and Rick Fuller debuted on WCW.
Wow, yeah.
So, and he goes, I said, well, we're doing a thing. We got to stay where we are, blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, well, all right, that's cool. And he goes, when you learn about the business, kid, call me back. Click. And I'm holding the phone and I'm like, what did I just do?
Right.
And it was seriously the biggest kick in the ass I have ever had in my life.
Right. Ah, that's too bad, man. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it's so many things that we just missed out on.
Right.
And to start where we started and to get where we both got separately and
Right.
together. I mean, granted, it's local and it's regional, but I mean, I think we did a lot. And,
Yeah, I think you did
and
too.
I've touched a lot of workers that are still working today, and they don't forget where they came from,
Right.
which is nice.
Right.
Like Todd Hansen.
Yeah.
That has got to be the most humble guy I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And I met him when he first started training with NWA New England,
Right.
before we went to Chaotic, and Johnny Blue. And that kid never changed. Like, never changed.
Isn't it awesome to see him on TV, though, knowing all the injuries he went through? I mean,
When the last time he got hurt, I texted him and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm going to be okay." I'm like, "I know you're going to be okay."
Right.
He goes, "But what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm not done yet." I'm like, "All right, dude, you know what? You're on WrestleMania. You're coming down in a Viking ship. I ain't saying nothing to you.
No,
you do what you need to do." Like
Yeah.
I can't doubt it. I can't fault him for it.
Yeah.
This is his dream. Like, and I never even got to that point. Like, I worked
hear
out
you.
in front of Shane. I had a tryout in '95 in Titan Tower in the warehouse. That's the closest I got.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No,
So
I
it's
hear
like,
ya.
I get it. But I mean, I worry about the kid. Like,
Right.
And it's funny because I say kid, he's in his 40s.
yeah, he is.
But I still look at him as that 16-year-old,
Right.
17-year-old kid.
Right.
So it's like,
Kid that just loved wrestling.
oh my God, such raw talent.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at a show when he was wrestling for NECW, and Les Thatcher said the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. He was wrestling Brian Malonis, and Les goes, "See that? Those two will never make it anywhere. Look how out of shape they are." And I looked right at him and I said, "Do you forget Dusty Rhodes
Right.
and Adrian Adonis?
Yeah.
And King Kong Bundy?
Right.
Like, you are that is the dumbest thing I've
Yeah.
ever." And then he gets ROH.
Right.
And then he goes to NXT. I'm like, good for you.
That was amazing how he ended up in his tag team. They beat the crap out of each other in the finals of the Prospect Tournament.
yep.
And then Ray said to him, "We should just team up and beat everybody up." And Todd was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, it was like two people that just meant to be together.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, everybody that's made it from locally,
Yeah.
he's the one I'm most happy for. Honestly. Because of all the injuries he went through.
Well, you gotta
Less a man would have quit.
We got to understand that the other two people that really made it from the area are Kofi,
Yeah.
who wasn't around long enough
No,
in
exactly.
the area
Right,
to
2.5
really
years.
be considered from
Right,
the area.
right.
I mean, he lived here.
No,
but,
I know what you mean.
but they grabbed him like real quick.
Yeah.
And then Mercedes.
Yeah. She was quick too. Not as quick.
Not as quick, but she was
pretty quick.
But she also had, I mean, there was a lot of things behind her name.
yeah.
She had a lot of connections.
Right.
So, but not to say she doesn't warrant the. She's a phenomenal worker.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
I mean, yes, it was. She had a kind of path for
Right.
her. So,
All right. So Shooter's got a couple more. What's the one thing looking back you did you wish you didn't, but if you could go back and change, what would it be?
my conversation with Tony Rumble.
Yeah?
Yep.
What
Now-
happened?
Well, when I told him I can't work for him.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that would have been the only. That's the one real thing in my career, in my wrestling career,
Right.
that I would have changed.
But now that was back when nobody wanted you to work anywhere else, right? Like Joe didn't want you to work.
Oh, nobody wanted to work anybody.
Like Jeff Costa didn't want any of his guys to
Nope.
work anywhere.
It was so. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I started running a company, I was the same way.
Right.
I didn't want you working anybody else, and I penalized people for doing it. And I can't. And I suddenly got to the point where I was like, "This is dumb."
Right.
We're trying to run territory mentality in a 5-state region
Right.
that you can drive to all 5 states in one day.
Yeah.
And it was when I became a promoter and an owner, I realized how just not fair that is to guys that maybe making $25.
Right.
I mean, I can tell right now, we had good paydays for PWF
Yeah.
if you were one of our main guys,
Right.
but for the majority, everybody made $25.
Right.
But my entire crew got paid too. My ring crew,
Yeah.
my merchandise people,
Nice.
everybody got paid that was at that show.
Right.
Something.
Yeah.
So I took pride in that. Would I have liked to have given bigger paydays, knowing what they go through, because I went through it?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
But the money's not there.
Exactly. The money's just, it's not, we're not getting paid shows
Right.
like they did in the 80s where they're getting $3,000
Yeah.
from a school
Right.
and only giving $1,000 to the boys and pocketing $2,000.
Yeah, a
Like,
paid show.
I mean, those went by because of
Right.
insurance, and none of the schools wanted the liability.
Wow.
Because I was ECW.
Yeah.
All that hardcore. I mean, I was just so much to blame. I did it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. It took years off my career, but I did it. I was dumb.
Right. All right. Scott's got one more. Talk about the Mayhem show with the refrigerator at ringside. Was it the one with Dave Padula involved?
Okay. Yeah, I wrestled Dave, but he wasn't in that match. We called it a mousetrap refrigerator death match.
Okay.
And it was on the street in Providence, Rhode Island. We closed off a section of Chad Brown Street.
Okay.
Now, if you knew about Rhode Island and Chad Brown, it's one of the worst projects there is.
Okay.
So we were down on the good end of Chad Brown Street, but like 2 miles the other way, it was like murders like
Right.
every other month.
Yeah.
So we blocked off the road, and we didn't even have skirts for our ring. We wrapped it in caution tape, and we put on a show right in front of my house in Providence.
Wow.
We grabbed we stole some construction barrels.
Yeah.
And we closed off the street. We didn't ask anybody. We just did it.
Took 'em.
And we closed off our little block, and we put on a show in the middle of the street. And Black Wolf and who did he work in that match? Oh my God! Was it Johnny Angel? Would have been Johnny Angel. So we gutted a refrigerator as best we could.
Right.
There's still a ton of metal and shit.
Yeah.
And we filled it with set mousetraps. And the way you won is like a casket match, but you threw them into the mousetraps and
Yeah.
closed the lid. What we weren't planning on was somebody getting backdropped on the refrigerator 2 matches before the death match. So the second they hit the cover, all the mousetraps went off.
Right. Right.
So I'm sitting up on my porch. I'm like, we got to go set all those mousetraps again. So, but I wrestled Dave Padula in the main event.
Yeah.
And what was funny was Dave is like, oh, I'm going to bring a big pillowcase of thumbtacks. I'm like, no, you're not. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to bring thumbtacks. I'm like, Dave, no tacks.
Right.
I said, you got your nail bat. We got chairs. We got trash cans. We got tables. I said, no thumbtacks.
Right.
He goes, all right. Well, obviously that didn't come because he dumped a pillowcase of thumbtacks in the
Yeah.
middle of the ring.
He didn't listen.
No, not. And what was funny was I had a gimmick in my wrist to blade after a chair shot, and Dave hit me with the chair the wrong way, upside down.
So he cut you anyway.
So the rim busted me wide open. So there's footage of me swearing very loudly,
Yeah.
looking at my head going, well, I don't need this.
Right.
And I threw the blade into my garage that was right there and went back into the ring, and there was the orthopedic canes,
Yeah.
the ones that are really, really, really stiff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bent that over his back as a thank you.
Yeah. I think he deserved it.
I gave him a nice receipt. It was nice. Back in
my
the days
God.
when receipts were nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Good old Dave Padula. All right. JP Griffin.
Yep.
What exactly is his world?
All right.
I don't know what that means.
NECW, we were running a show in a rodeo ring.
Okay.
So the seats were elevated. So the ring was down in the corner. And I think it was Sabotage versus somebody. You know Dave.
Yeah.
With his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm at ringside with controlling the crowd. And Dave's yelling up at some dad.
DC.
DC.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, here we go. And so him and Eddie were doing something. And the father and the son, evidently drinking a lot,
Right.
jumped over the rail and landed right in front of me. And JP was standing right here next to me. And I looked right at the father and I was like, you're done. You're in my world now.
Right.
And I've never seen somebody turn white and a son say, Dad, let's get out of here.
Right.
Like, and it just jet back up the wall.
Oh, my God.
And that's been a joke with JP for
And just so everybody knows, JP's like 6'7" too.
Oh, yeah.
He's a
and
big
that's
dude.
back when he was like 350,
Yeah, he's
375.
lost a lot of weight. He looks fantastic. Great job, JP. All right, he's got another one. What happened to that farmer kid at the Connecticut Fair Show that stepped into your world and came over the bar? Is that the same?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, doesn't that, because he asked the same thing.
This was at a Pat show. And this kid he had to have been late teens, early 20s tops.
Right.
He was sitting with his girlfriend and just getting mouthy and mouthy and mouthy. And now Pat, there's no guardrails.
Right.
And I was in a mood and I may have smoked a little something. So I was
nice.
I was feeling good. And I jumped out of the ring and I still hear Pat going, oh. So I walk up to the kid and I move the chair out of the way. And I said, come on. And he goes, I'll get in there and I'll kill you. I was like, let's go.
Right.
So I got no issue. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he kept his mouth running. And I said to him, I said, there's nothing stopping me from punching you in the face right in front of that cop. And I'm not going to jail.
Right.
Because I'll say it's part of the show.
Yeah.
And I got in the ring. I did my match. I get back at intermission.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at the table signing autographs. The kid walks up to me with his girlfriend and asks for an autograph. And I looked at I looked at his girlfriend and I'm like, why are you with him?
Right.
And she's like, I don't know. I told him to sit down. Told him to shut up.
She probably wasn't with him much longer, I would imagine.
I don't know. But that's what they're talking about.
That's wild. All right. Matthew McGee, Freight Train. I don't think you know Freight Train.
No.
Okay. Freight Train's a good dude. How has independent wrestling changed from the time you first took a bump to the product now? It's a great question, Train.
Well, it has improved.
Yeah.
The product has improved.
Right.
Not necessarily storytelling and the actual business.
Right.
But the talent and the seriousness in which these kids take it these days.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't in the gym.
Right.
We worked out, and my training was in a ring 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Driving from Gloucester, Rhode Island to New Bedford.
Right.
So, and we started, as we got older, we worked out and stuff. But for the most part, people didn't. And we didn't take it seriously. I wish what's changed, I think, when we became vets, as opposed to when we came in. I use that term very loosely, but anyway, the vets when we came in, for the most part, didn't help you.
Right.
Didn't talk to you, didn't really.
They were worried about their spot.
They weren't forthcoming with knowledge
Right.
and what you should and shouldn't do.
Right.
Very, very few. Derek, Nolly, Reverend Redemption,
Yes.
was probably the first vet that actually sat me down and was like,
Nice.
look, your talent's there, you're this or that, but you gotta, your mouth is you're way too quick spoken.
Right.
You need to stop sometimes and not necessarily come
listen.
back, not necessarily come back with a comment,
Right.
but actually just, you might not listen to what they're saying, but just let them say it. Right. And I was like that with a lot of promoters. I didn't really close my mouth at all.
It's one of the reasons why Reverend Redemption was one of the favorite of all the wrestlers.
Yes, and because he took the time, but for the most part, they didn't.
Right.
And when we became vets, I said, I will not do that.
Right.
So I gave what little knowledge and what little experience I had.
Yeah.
And I told everybody, look, this is what you don't want to do. I did it. Trust me, you don't want to do it.
Right.
And I tried to, in the time that I was running a company and doing that, but I go to shows now, and like I went to a show a couple months ago, Caleb Seltzer's show.
Yeah.
And Brandon Locke was there. And he's the only
Great talent.
Only person I know.
Really?
And he comes out of the locker room and he sees me and he gives me a big hug. 'Cause I haven't seen him
Right.
since NECW's last show. Well, since I did PWF's last show, because he was our champ
Jeez, that's
when I
a
left.
long time ago.
Yeah. So he's like, "What are you doing here? You're not working, are you?" I'm like, "No." And we're sitting there and we're just BSing. And I said, "Who are these kids?"
Yeah.
And Anthony Green was there too. I know Anthony, but I
Yeah.
knew Anthony
As
when
a
he was
referee,
sitting.
right?
No.
Oh, as a fan.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's the first
he was
time I saw him when he was a little chubby fan.
Yeah, I'm just like, so I'm like, what happened?
Right.
And he goes, "Dude, I don't know." He goes, "I go to a show now," and I said, "I don't know anybody."
Right.
He goes, "I'm from a different era." He goes, "And I'm kind of stuck between these new kids and all the you older guys when I started, like Steve and all those guys.
Yeah.
Alex Arion.
Right.
And he goes, "I'm like stuck in the middle of that. So it's like I don't know which way to go."
Yep.
He goes, I don't consider myself a vet, but I'm not a noob. It's like, where do I go?"
Right.
And so we had a really good conversation. And he's like, "If you come back, we're going to do a program." I'm like, "No, we're not." No, we're not.
Brandon was here like almost like little less than a year ago. What a great guest he was.
He is a good guy.
Really great guy.
He's a good kid.
Yeah, he is.
I can say kid with him because he was 15 years old when he started, I think.
Right.
Or 16.
All right, I got a bunch of questions from Chopper Pitsley.
Oh, jeez.
Memories of the dog collar Storm's woodshed match with Vertebreaker, where he almost hung him unconscious and making Vertebreaker his Storm brother?
All right,
Or are you
so-
going to make him an...
No, when we were in Yankee Pro, his mom, Sandy Starr,
yeah.
Vert would work backstage and he would draw things for like posters and things. Kyle's name.
Right.
And so he was starting to train and starting to do some other stuff. And we did a show for Tommy and Pete. For
Tommy Angel?
No, I say Tommy. It's not Power League.
Okay.
And we're like, "Hey, we're gonna do a 6-man." I said, "We're gonna bring in the third Storm brother." And Tommy D was like, "Oh, okay." So I called up Kyle and I'm like, "Hey, you want to be our third and come out in the jeans and from
Yeah.
Seattle and be a Storm brother?" And he's like, "Yeah." So that started in '96, and then Primal started.
Right.
And he had become Vertebreaker at that point.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to go for the Primal Heavyweight title, but there was a show in between. And Vertebreaker was doing a promo, and I came out and I was like, "Yo, don't forget where you started, little brother." And we started a little angle.
Yeah.
And we called it the woodshed match. I said, "I'm going to take you in the backyard and bring you to the woodshed where Dad used to bring us." And we did that whole thing. And he wanted me to hang him. And so he had the collar on and the chain attached to it. And I wrapped the chain like 2 more times so it wasn't as taut.
Right.
So I got to the little space.
Yeah.
Well, when he went over the top, he twisted. So it brought the collar up
Right.
instead of keeping the collar down. And he almost went out.
Yeah.
He almost went out. He was able to, the ring wasn't that far off the ground, so he was able to get back up on the apron. But yeah, that was
He ended up being a hell of a talent.
him in Knoxville had
Yeah.
some tremendous matches. He's another one though that let his mouth
Right.
get in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
But I always had fun with Kyle. He's always a good kid.
All right. Tony Atlas, Herring KO'd and chaotic? What does that mean?
Okay. My first match with Chaotic Wrestling,
Yeah.
they had me going against Tony Atlas, and we were with the Shriners.
Yeah. Oh, Wilmington.
Yeah, and the end of the match was supposed to be me missing a moonsault. I pop up, he headbutts me.
Yeah.
He goes over. I got Master Sandy in my corner.
Who used to kick the crap out of him in matches.
Well, they did it on purpose.
Yeah, no, I know, but it was crazy.
That's why she was in my corner.
Right, right.
Because Tony asked for it.
Yeah.
I had never met Sandy before.
Right.
So we're going over a thing, and Tony was Tony. And I told him probably about 7 times, "Tony, this isn't a splash.
Right.
This is a moonsault. You got to roll in." Okay. I got you. Before we went out, Tony,
Right.
remember, roll in. 3 times during the match. Tony, remember,
Right.
roll in. He's outside with Sandy. I'm telling Sandy, remind him, roll in.
Right.
So he comes back into the ring, and I give him a couple whacks. And as I'm body slamming him,
You tell
roll
him again.
in.
Right.
Now, when I miss my moonsault, I get like Kurt Angle there.
Right.
And as I'm going, I'm looking at the mat, and I watch Tony roll out. So I came down on the back of his head with my knee and shin and knocked him out cold.
Right.
He's supposed to go over. I roll him over. I cover him. I kick myself out.
Yeah.
I pick his head up, and I'm like smacking him, trying to wake his ass
Yeah.
up. And I look at the ref, and I was like, I can't remember who the ref was.
Crockett?
No, it was Tony's ref, the skinny guy.
Okay.
I can never remember his name. And I said, he goes, pin him.
Right.
So I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So I pin him. Now, mind you, this was 2001. No, 2000. So I am, 26.
Yeah.
I walk into the back. King Kong Bundy, Chris, was sitting there. He goes, way to go, Storm. You just killed the legend. And I got really upset. Like,
Right.
I can't believe I just I hurt him.
Right.
And I packed my shit and I left. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And I was just like, I was a mess.
Right.
Randy calls me up. He goes, Tony's okay. He goes, because we can't use your real moniker, we're going to start calling you the Legend Killer. Now, this is before Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Way before Randy Orton.
Right.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? He goes, no, run it, roll with it, run it.
Right.
He goes, we're going to do it. And I'm like, okay. And fast forward to a show at Wonderland. I get there early because I have the ring, because he was renting our ring. And I see Bundy on the card.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm messing with Bundy. I grabbed the piece of paper and I rewrote the card, and
Yeah.
I wrote Bundy across from me in the main event with me circled.
Right.
Chris walked in, he looked at it and he went, oh, I'm out of here. I'm not working Storm. I still got a career left. And so that was a rib going on for a while. Rick Fuller would rib me about it for years.
A lot of people said that he was like, Bundy was one of the nicest veterans to ever come into the independent locker rooms and treated everybody fantastically.
Chris was awesome.
Yeah, it's what everybody says.
And what's funny is he remembered you.
Right.
Now, a lot of these guys you work with and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, I met you. Oh, yeah, I remember you.
Yeah,
No, you don't.
They don't. Right.
Chris, like years later.
He'd tell you where he
And
met
I
you.
don't know if it was because I knocked Tony out or not.
Right.
So it burned a memory in his
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
But he always remembered me. And
That's awesome.
Oh, dude, we talked probably like every other year, like a quick little on
Yeah.
the internet. Why aren't
That's
you in the Hall of
awesome.
Fame yet? Why aren't you in the Hall of Fame yet? Like I've always bust him up.
That's awesome. All right, before we get into more choppers, I got something that I want to say from Jason Rumble. Not really a question, but please let him know how important he was to me and my journey through pro wrestling. I'm forever grateful for him. I love you, brother. And that's not a great Rumble, but everybody's got to try to do a Rumble.
It's like everybody does on Mike Spada.
Exactly. Oh, he's unreal, Spada.
But yeah, when I came around to NWA New England, Jay he was probably a year in.
Still Jason Rage?
Nope, he had already become Jason Rumble.
Okay, all right.
Tony had passed away.
Oh, okay.
He was only Jason Rage for like 6 months.
Oh, really?
Not even.
I thought it was a couple of years.
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. I thought it was.
No, you're
'cause
probably right,
Because
believe
him,
me.
Slick. No, my memory's bad. Him, Slick, and Lewis all came in.
2K Club.
Yeah, all came in with Rumble
Right.
at the same time.
Right.
So that's when I came on board at NWA New England after Tony passed away, and he was running the TWO and with Bo Douglas
Yeah.
and somebody else at that point, but he brought me on board with that, and we had some fun. We did a lot of traveling. It was interesting.
Jason's a good dude,
It was
man.
interesting
Love
to say the
Jason.
least, yeah.
Right. All right. Back to Choppers. Being one of the first to sign a deal with Chaotic. You had already mentioned that.
Yep.
You were one of the first 5 or 6.
Yeah. Well, Chaotic, when Randy took over, he wanted Chaotic to be something different.
Right.
He didn't want his guys to be able to be seen anywhere else.
Yep.
So he put 5 of us under contract where we got paid every month. We got a check every month. Excuse me. Whether we worked or not. We all worked, but
Right.
we'd be responsible for showing up to tapings because they were running the Spanish channel.
Right.
UNI, UN, whatever that is.
Channel 50.
Univision.
Yeah.
And so we had to show up wherever there was tapings or wherever there was promotional stuff.
Right.
But we all got paid pretty well. I was there for a year and a half, signed my new deal, and then Randy had brought Mike Hollow on to be an advisor or whatever. And for whatever reason, Mike and I don't get along.
Okay.
Competing schools, competing trainers,
right.
whatever it was. It was probably BS. But anyway, one person saying this, all chirping.
Yeah.
So, and I had noticed on my last show with Chaotic, I was originally booked to go over on Jimmy Cash. I was the only undefeated wrestler in Chaotic. I know it's all the work, and all of a sudden it was marked that he was going over.
Cash,
Yep, for no reason.
who was pretty much probably brand new.
He was.
Right. Him and John Walter started right around the same time.
So I saw the card and I looked at Rich Palladino. I said, "This is my last night." And Rich has known me for years.
Right.
And this is a story I'm not going to be able to get into. We don't have enough time.
Right.
And it's a
You'll
story
have to
that
come back.
And it's a story that makes sense if
Right.
they actually tell it. But needless to say, I beat the hell out of Jimmy Cash that night, and basically like pulled him on top of me to pin me. Like
Right.
I beat the hell out of him, and then I left Chaotic and I called up Jason Rumble on the drive home, and I said, "You got a show tomorrow, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "You got room?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm coming." He goes, "I thought you were under contract." Not anymore.
Wow.
Now the way to break the contract is to work for somebody else.
Right. Exactly.
So I came out, grabbed the stick, and I said, another bad decision. Basically laid waste to Chaotic in the
Yeah.
middle of the ring. And decided that was the end of my Chaotic stint.
Wow. That's wild. All right. Let me see. He's got all right. Memories of John Cronus.
Where to start? Him and I worked probably 3 or 4 matches.
Wow.
And we're going to run out of time on this
Yeah.
too. Needless to say, when he passed away, him and Anthony Durante really, like, I became very close to the both of them.
Right.
And with Anthony's problems and John's problems, and I was at John's house in East Philadelphia, and we were just trying to get things back squared up, and it's a shame. The two of them, amazing talents, and gone way too early.
Right.
Gone way too early.
Well, let's go one name, 20 seconds. Gino Giovanni.
14-year-old kid who came into NEWA as a pretty boy and immediately got over with all the boys. Such a good kid. Such a good kid.
And a great heel.
Oh my God.
Him and DC are my favorite heels of all time in New England independent wrestling.
And I would agree with that.
Kyle, thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Let's do this
I'm
again.
sorry this ran
Seriously.
too long.
That's all right. Guys, we're out. Peace. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.